Today it is my pleasure and honor to welcome PDG Dr. Robert Loh to Rotary Conversation. For the benefit of our new Rotarians, Dr. Loh was our governor in the Rotary year 1991-92. Welcome, Dr. Loh.
Well,
as one of our senior PDGs in our district, could you share your thoughts on how Rotarians have contributed towards meeting service gaps in our district?
you know, Rotary at the beginning, we started in Singapore on a small scale. We had only one club in the 30s, right? We grew to post-war, immediate post-war, about 4 or 5 clubs. So anything that we did was along the lines of, you know, the 4 service avenues, as you know. And community service was one of the ways in which we helped the community around us. But by that time, there was already established well-known groups which were doing charity work towards the blind, the deaf, the mentally retarded, the handicapped, you know, and the poor people. And so these were going on along, and Singapore got its independence soon after that. And then the number of Rotary clubs seemed to grow very rapidly after that. Now, during the course of the growth of Singapore and the development of Singapore into a first-class nation, world-class nation, we call it a first world nation. There was a moment in time in the 80s when some unpleasant remarks and criticisms were made by people, high-ranking people in the government and among the ministries. And I think there was once a dinner given to a certain guest of honor who, in no uncertain way, criticized the club for not doing more for Singapore. And so I happened to be part of the social service scene at that time. I was vice president of the Singapore Council of Social Service, and during that time, from the year 1988 to 91, I was in charge of a team that led to the restructure of the National Council, a new body, social service body, governing body. And we called it the National Council of Social Service, and I was made the president. This was to look after all the handicapped, the marginalized people, the poor, the elderly, and all those people who needed help. And to my mind, and it so happened, I became district governor in 1991. A very strange, but very conveniently
Exciting event.
Moment in time for this to occur, for the change in Rotary's perspective of how to contribute to the community in Singapore. And so I got myself, I and a few other senior Rotarians like General Minjut, the incoming DG, past district governor Philbert Chin, Tan Gok Tian, Tay Tek Eng, and a few others decided that maybe we should start anything that is big. We need a foundation. Just like Rotary International started Rotary Foundation, I said we should start the same way. Start a foundation in Singapore. So we call ourselves the Rotary Foundation of the Singapore Clubs. In Singapore, that is for Singapore. And, but of course, it came about that Rotary Foundation heard about it and that we cannot use that name. We had to change it to the Foundation of Rotary Clubs in Singapore. So anyway, be that as may, the whole purpose was the same. to create an area, an agency whereby we could collect enough funds so that we can start a project. Any project that we start will be meaningful on a large scale and perpetuating by itself. In other words, we should have the, and we had the means for it. Why? We had people, the membership was were classified into a special, it was a special type of membership that Rotary had, you know. It helped us considerably in getting the right people for the right job. Organization ability, fundraising ability, contacts, and influential people who had, you know, a lot of ability to sway the powers that be. Yeah. So why not?
So in 1993, actually, you co-founded the foundation.
That's right.
With Gerald Minju.
That is correct.
Yeah. So at that time, what was your dream, and has that been fulfilled?
Well, we started with the idea that we should have also a Rotary house. Just like they had a Rotary house in Evanston. We have a Rotary house in Singapore where we could centralize all Rotary activities in Singapore in one area so that we get unity in our projects and whatever we undertake to do. Unfortunately, this has not been realized, but we have been able to, with myself at the National Council of Social Service, help them start a program which will be accepted by the National Council of Social Service and will never be a tax-exempt project. And so that was the first program they adopted under the auspices of the sponsorship of the National Council of Social Service, and it was founded in 1993, and thereafter there you are. And I think now it's developed even one more step, isn't it?
Yes.
Recently. So I think to that extent I'm pretty well satisfied with where we're going.
Okay. I understand that you've also encouraged PDG Philbert Chin to set up RSVP. I'm just curious, how many other voluntary and community service organizations you have been involved one way or the other?
Well, I was president of the National Council for 10 years, from 1992 to 2002. And during that time, I indirectly was involved in the starting of many programs and projects through the NCSS. Being a chairman, you know, obviously you get tied up, although you may not have, you spend very much energy in it. But the NCSS is a way of identifying new projects which are needed in Singapore. New projects for the poor, the handicapped, the marginalized, and the needy. And so I found that, well, the demographic changes in Singapore pointed to the fact that we were getting a lot more old people. And I was sitting on 2 task forces which were created by the government to study into the programs that were needed for the elderly in Singapore. So I hit on myself, why not preserve the health of the elderly so they can live a happier, probably useful life up to whatever time is their time to go. So I hit upon this idea that there was RSVP, which was actually Philbert's idea. So I managed to persuade him, and he was, of course, very ready to take up a challenge, and he readily took it up. And where you are is very successful now.
Very successful, yes. Could you share your life's philosophy and how Rotary has impacted your work or family life?
Well, actually, I suppose he may have been the nascent beginning of my life's philosophy may have started in my early teens, 16, 15, 16. Otherwise, I was leading a very happy life childhood, having a fun in games, playing sports all the time. And then I was also very much influenced by my father and mother. My father was a municipal commissioner at that time, which it was part of the local governing body of the council. That is, Singapore was one huge municipality, and the municipal commissioner is the local governing body of Singapore, and he was part of it. And he had taken on himself several volunteer projects, like visiting old age homes. There was one called Bushy Park Home, which he brought me sometimes to see the old people. And that's how I was introduced to volunteer work. Then, of course, my mother was also very keen. As you know, my mother was made a member of the British Empire for work in the community after the war. And I was a member of the Boys Brigade, a very useful organization. And also part of YMCA, which used to do some volunteer work. And so that probably introduced me into helping others, the idea of helping others. And the war, experiences of the war, as you know, I was only 16 when I was sent by my father away from Singapore to accompany my mother. We were advised by the colonial secretary at that time, where my father was friends with him, and he says, I think, in a not direct manner, he says, I think it's about time you send your wife away. You see, my mother was a keen supporter of the Kuomintang group. And in fact, she's a niece of Mr. Teo Eng Hock. Teo Eng Hock was the appointed person to look after Sun Yat-sen whenever he visits Singapore. So she used to raise money for the China Relief Fund. So she would be a marked woman if the Japanese ever got hold of Singapore. So from that information, we were assisted in getting tickets to go abroad. And at that time I was 16, not ready for any college in Singapore, but ready for a college in Australia. I was supposed to do medicine in Adelaide, where my old principal, Reverend K.S. Adams of St. Andrew's School in Singapore, had arranged for me to go, because they would take a boy in of 16, but Singapore required you to be 17 before you can enter college or go into university. So he says, you might as well go now. You go with your mother to Australia. Take care of her. You're the elder son. My other son, who's older than you are, has to remain in Singapore for military duty. They were not allowed to out of Singapore. Once you're 17 or over, you may have to be compulsory, shall we say, dragooned into military service. So that's how I came to go about. But the ship, instead of sailing to Singapore, went up to India. Instead of sailing from Singapore to Australia, I was redirected and went up to India. And 7 days later, when we all woke up at the gateway of India. We were startled, hey, this doesn't look like Fremantle. Because the captain said they had been chased by, they had lost the battle of the Java Sea. You see, in those days, that was a very critical battle, the control of the seas. So the British lost the control of the seas completely. They lost the Renown and the Repulse, you know, the two big ships. And there was no aeroplane cover. So we were chased all the way by Japanese aeroplanes and torpedo and submarines. But we managed to arrive safely. And there you are. That's how. And that put me through a life. Well, there were tumultuous days for me. I learned the hard way how to be responsible, how to take care of my family. I was supposed to be the head of the household now, but at 16, the eldest boy now in the family that was left there. And I went to 7 years of life in India. A very good experience for me. Excellent, excellent.
So you didn't go to Australia for your...
I didn't go to Australia. Oh. I went to medicine, to do my medicine in India.
Oh, okay.
Strange, but a very wholesome experience for me. Taught me how the poor and the rich live side by side. You know, in India, the difference of wealth is tremendous. You can see the amount of wealth in the people staying in, for example, Saupati Beach. You know? Yes. The people who stay up in Malabar Hill. Yes. And the people who stay in Crawford Street in Baikala.
You remember all the names?
Oh yeah, why not? And so it was an experience for me. And then what is more important, I learned to deal with riots. My experience of riots, how the British Army and the Indian Army and the police under the British command shot at people who were, you know, demonstrating against the British during the war. There was and then, as you know, India got her independence soon after the war, right? And the division of India into Pakistan, and how he created a tremendous strife between the Muslims and the Indians. I experienced all that. And I learned that the Indian students were politically very active. I mean, I've never heard of our students in Singapore going into politics at the age of 18 or 19. Yeah. There they were, demonstrating. In fact, I had a lathi charged at me because I was curious, and a lathi hit my back. It wasn't bad anyway, it was a light blow. But there you are. Those experiences taught me what life could be, how different it could be, how much distress there is around a place, and people do need help. And that's...
So it led you to joining Rotary?
No, it led me to believe that there's more to life than just have fun and games. And when I came back and saw the Mariah hot dog things here in Singapore, and actually I was on duty when the first case of the Mariah hot dog riots came in, and I looked at the first patient and reported to the authorities that there are some riot cases here.
So you were practicing it?
I was in Singapore. I come back to Singapore to study. So all those experiences taught me life is more than just fun and games. There's much more to life than that.
Which year did you join Rotary?
Now, I joined Rotary in '62, and I had two examples of people who are excellent Rotarians. The first was Dr. A.W.S. Thivatasan, our Vice President of Rotary International in that year. Do you know he died in my arms? He was entertaining the President of the Rotary International, and during his speech, he suddenly stumbled and fell, and he collapsed. And I rushed to him with Dr. Harold Chan to see what we could do, being doctors. And we saw he was gasping for breath. And Harold Chan, being an anesthetist, knew straight away that he had a heart attack. Well, that's a bitter experience for me. But he was a wonderful leader. He helped me. He showed me what you must do for people. He was a wonderful role model for me. Another role model was my father. He helped me. And then, of course, later on, Dr. E. Peng Liang. And so, yeah, there are people who put into meaning out of my philosophy in life. That help.
When you review your various roles in Rotary, which one would you say was the most enjoyable?
As a district governor, I had a great time mixing up with all the various people from various areas. I went through the whole of the district. There were 45 clubs in those days, right? In those days for me. So I had to go through the whole of southern Malaya, East Malaysia, including Brunei and Labuan. So it was very interesting. And I opened up. First time I've ever been across to Sarawak. First time, you know.
Okay, I'm curious about when Rotarians are contemplating a significant project, what kind of guidance would you like to give them?
I would say there are a few projects that may need Rotarians' attention, could be, and I would say if there's anybody thinking about on those lines, it'd be worthwhile contacting or getting in touch with the National Council of Social Service. They have made a complete survey of the future needs of Singapore and where the democratic changes will lead us to, and the other newer, at least to us, newer areas of deficiency may come in. For example, like autism and all that, which is something we realized, we knew it was there, but we didn't realize how big it was a problem. And so they've got a special organization helping out autistic people. So I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah. So that's for the Singapore side. How about the rest of our district, Rotarians in Malaysia?
But there I can't really help, but I think bigger, I would say. In every project, don't just think of you see, unfortunately this major project thing has always been a pet subject with every president. You know, he wants a major project, and usually while the club decides the major project is probably shall we say a choice finally that really actually was influenced by the president. And it's a one-off project. You do it one time, that's it. You can't get much publicity out of it, because essentially, not that I'm a publicity seeker, but you need to have the public behind you. How on earth are you going to get the rest of the country or your area to support you if they don't know what you're doing? You have to do something worthwhile doing, something that the country needs or the area needs, and then it must be publicized.
Okay. Having served on various boards of social and voluntary welfare organizations, what do you think sets Rotary apart from the others? Is there anything positive about the way we operate, or anything?
Oh, absolutely.
Or something that we could improve upon?
Well, you may have to improve something, but you have basic qualifications to be a very good, active civil service or civic body. To be a good civic body. First of all, your membership, the way you classify your membership. Top-ranking people of each category, whatever category, professional, bankers, finance, business leaders, everything else. There you are. You got the best man for it. These people are probably very influential, right? And they will help you very much in fundraising, or they may be very much in advising you on certain aspects of the organization which you are involved in. So there you are. You got the right people to do it, and the right people who can help you to start this thing.
So that's the strength of Rotary.
I think that's the powerful strength of Rotary itself. Basically, they form a pool of people which are very useful.
Is there something you feel Rotary can improve?
Yes. As I said to you, stress, start thinking big. That's all.
Okay. With rapidly changing demographics and changing community needs, how do you think that Rotary clubs can remain vibrant and relevant?
Well, you know, we nowadays don't seem to be very fussy about getting the membership that we want. It is a Rotary's privilege to invite people to be members, not for people who will submit their names for admission to Rotary or join Rotary. They have to be invited, and that's a very powerful privilege we have. You see, so invite the right people, invite good people who are sincere, knowing that knowing that Rotary now is a service club, service above self, and that's it. You invite them, the right people. That's very important.
Despite being deeply involved in social services and making significant contributions over so many years, you are still passionate about community service. So where do you draw your inspiration from to keep going, doing more charity, especially through Rotary?
I wouldn't say I'm inspired to do that. I think it is become ingrained to do that, and I find that in life you may live a wonderful life, you think, but the fulfilling part is that if you've served other people, that helps to make it a rounded, fulfilled life. So that's what I work on. While I may not be as able to participate in any, shall we say, programs of any of a new project, I will encourage it whatever way I can.
Is there something that you envision and would love to see come true in terms of community service through Rotary?
For the future?
Yes.
Well, I've been working on this problem for the last 15 years. And of course, behind that is, of course, the fact that I feel rather disappointed I've never been able to complete my hope for Rotary House in Singapore. I hope that will happen. Now, the second thing, of course, I've been working on this project for almost 15 years with some friends. And this is to make Singapore a kind of retirement place, to create an area for Singapore, or several areas if you wish, as a retirement place for the middle class people and perhaps the professional people who are fairly reasonably well off to be able to afford to live by themselves, but in an area which there is community life together within the community itself.
Like a retirement village.
Exactly. But within the community itself, so that you can, you know, with neighborhood schools around, you can see children coming around playing with you. You can be taking bus rides to a neighborhood mall once or twice a week just for go around shopping, and yet provide enough facilities so that in case you need attention, little attention, they will be available. With health facilities provided particularly. Yeah. And, but I had a few people who were very interested in helping out. Not me, but there was another group that started it and they invited me in. And so we managed to get, we thought, enough suitable people for that cause. But the main thing, of course, is how to sustain this, how to make them sustainable, and yet reasonably economical for those who would like to stay in a sheltered home, but at the same time be reasonably independent. We got the government, we tried to get the government to come in. Oh, we'll offer you land. But land, yes, in Jurong, But then, at an economic rental, I say that puts paid to the idea. If you want us to pay the price of the land in which you think you want to publicly sell the land for, how on earth are we going to recover costs? I mean, we are not afraid if we don't pay, don't lose, but we're also not worried about making money. But we don't want to lose money into that project. What for? There's a vain project that is started on the wrong foot and in vain. You see? So that's what I've been hoping for. Hopefully we can persuade the powers that be.
And Rotary can play a part in this.
Oh yes, why not? Rotarians, I'm sure, will be invited. People like, well, Rotarians are mainly made up of middle class and educated people, right? Do you know one of the possible outcomes of this? Of this failure of giving retirement homes for this group of people, this is what we call a little, what call it, missing sandwich group. No, their children, being from the professional class, are probably professionals themselves, well educated, has been abroad and come back, and they find. They've seen abroad, they've seen Australia, they've seen Japan, they've seen America, where how old people are living, and they lead this sort of lives that they enjoy. And here in Singapore, I find I've been offered to go and stay in Johor. I've been offered homes in Batam. What relevance is that to a Singaporean? He's a Singaporean, he's not even being given a place to stay in Singapore. He's contributed all his life to Singapore, and you're advising him to go and stay buy a home in Johor, buy a home in Batam. I mean, but you don't have to quote me this, but this is what I feel would be a wonderful thing if we can build up this missing, to help out the sandwich area. And you know, and when their children look at this and see what's happening, they say, if my father, who has worked all his life for Singapore, has to retire in Johor, what the heck am I doing in Singapore? I might as well go and work overseas in Australia, and my father can get a place to stay. And when I retire, I'll be able to stay in Australia. So you may have lost quite a number of important people who could serve the country later on.
Okay, Dr. Loh, one last question. Would there be a message you'd like to convey to our new Rotarians in the district? Having been in Rotary for 50 years, is it?
Well, I've been a Rotarian for 50 years. 62 up to on to exactly 50 years. It's not people like me who have been offered this. I was invited to come in. Fortunately, I had good friends. I would say to people who are intending to bring in their friends to be Rotarians, to look out for what will be a good Rotarian. Who is likely to become a good Rotarian? And a good Rotarian is a person who will serve the club. Serve the club perhaps in any of the avenues of service, and not just sit idly and enjoy the club, or whatever they call it, and not be a luncheon club. As we've earned this reputation before, no? We're trying to lose that reputation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Loh, for taking some time out to meet us today.
Pleasure.
And this conversation is truly inspirational for me, and I'm sure for many other Rotarians in our district. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you.